There's a strange kind of magic in a song that only happens once. Most artists spend their entire careers chasing a hit and never catch one. And then there are the ones on this list who caught lightning for exactly one song, watched it climb higher than anyone expected, and then never touched that height again. The song stayed. The fame didn't. That's the story of the 1960s one-hit wonder. 10 songs that defined entire summers, entire heartbreaks, entire versions of you that don't exist anymore, and then vanished from the radio almost as fast as they arrived. We're talking garage rock, psychedelic pop, British invasion spillover, and a couple of songs so strange they shouldn't have worked at all. And yet every single one of them became unforgettable. Some written in 15 minutes flat, others crossed an ocean, got translated twice, and still somehow became American classics. One was recorded by a band who hated the song they were making. Some of these you'll recognize the second the first note hits. Others you haven't heard in decades, and you'll wonder how a song this good ever slipped away in the first place. Every artist on this list only got one shot to matter this much. What they did with it is what makes this list worth hearing again. Let's start at number 10. Number 10, Little Girl by Syndicate of Sound, 19...
Nothing no more. You didn't do nothing that hadn't been done.
You know this one. You knew it before you even knew the title. That snarling little guitar riff that sounds like it's daring you to turn it up louder. It's the sound of being 17 and certain you know everything, blasting out of a cheap car speaker on a Friday night that felt like it belonged only to you. Syndicate of Sound were 5 guys out of San Jose who weren't trying to make history. They were trying to make noise loud enough to fill a garage. The band came together in 1964, and after winning a local Battle of the Bands contest against more than 100 other groups, they landed a small record deal that went nowhere. Singer Don Baskin and bassist Bob Gonzalez wrote Little Girl themselves not long after, recording it in a San Francisco studio in January of 1966. It started as a purely regional hit, catching fire on a single San Jose radio station. A New York label heard the buzz and picked it up for national distribution. It came out of that same restless, unpolished energy. Recorded fast, mixed rough, built on attitude instead of polish. For a lot of listeners, this became the song that played at the exact moment they stopped being a kid and started being something else. A little more defiant, a little more sure of themselves, windows down and the radio cranked as far as it would go. It cracked the national top 10 in the summer of 1966, peaking at number 8 on Billboard. But the part that still surprises people. Rock historians now consider this one of the earliest blueprints for punk rock, a full decade before punk had a name. A British punk band called The Band took their cover of it into the UK top 10 in 1977, and country star Dwight Yoakam later recorded his own version too. The band even opened for
If you come knocking, you won't get past.
Stones on the 4th of July that year, and James Brown was reportedly so impressed watching them on a TV taping that he invited them to share a bill with him. A garage band from San Jose accidentally invented a sound they'd never live to see fully arrive. Number 9, Little Bit of Soul by The Music Explosion, 1967. The instant that bass line kicks in, something in your chest just lifts. There's no other way to describe it. It's impossible to hear this song and stay sitting still. A handful of teenagers from Mansfield, Ohio were handed this song almost as an afterthought. It had already been written by British songwriters John Carter and Ken Lewis, the same duo behind Herman's Hermits' Can't You Hear My Heartbeat, and recorded 2 years earlier by a Coventry band called The Little Darlings, who took it nowhere. When these Ohio kids, playing under the name The Chosen Few, auditioned for New York producers Jerry Kasenitz and Jeff Katz, this forgotten song was handed to them almost as a throwaway. The band's guitarist later described the original as sounding like a children's folk tune. Nothing special until they...
Now when your girl is gone and you're broken
their hands on it. They gave it a driving new bass line, and everything changed. Legend has it the band even got its new name from a car radio, a DJ's station ID for Your Music Explosion. Station gave the producers the idea on the spot. This became the song people put on when they needed the day to turn around, on the instant mood lift, the one that made even a bad afternoon feel like it still had potential. It sold over 1 million copies and climbed to number 2 on the Billboard chart, and most of the band members were still teenagers when it happened. They toured the country that summer, played alongside acts twice their age, and then it was over. Their only other charting single, Sunshine Games, barely cracked the top 70, and none of them ever cracked the top 40 again. Decades later, the Ramones covered it on one of their own albums, and the song resurfaced in the 2017 film Detroit, introducing it to a listener base born decades after it first climbed the charts. That was pure, uncomplicated joy. The next one on this list carries something heavier underneath the energy. Number 8, Time Won't Let Me by The Outsiders, 1966. 2 in the morning, empty highway. This song on the radio, horns blaring through the static like the night itself is picking up speed. The Outsiders came out of Cleveland with something most garage bands didn't have. Actual horn players giving their sound a punch that felt bigger than a 5-piece band had any right to produce. They weren't newcomers riding the British invasion wave either. The core lineup had been playing Cleveland clubs together since 1958 under the name Starfires, working 6 nights a week in local bars long before most British invasion copycat bands had even picked up an instrument. Guitarist Tom King and his brother-in-law Chet Kelly wrote "Time Won't Let Me" out of a simple, universal ache. Wanting more time with someone before life pulls you apart. The band's name change itself came from a family dispute. King's uncle owned the small label they'd been recording for, and when King pushed for a bigger deal, he says he was told he'd become an outsider in the family. The name stuck. For a generation of listeners, this became the anthem for every summer romance with an expiration date built in from the start. The last dance before someone moved away, the countdown nobody wanted to admit was happening. It reached number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100, sold over 1 million copies and earned a gold record. Billboard would later rank it the 42nd biggest hit of the entire year across every genre. And here's the twist. Almost nobody knows this band isn't actually a one-hit wonder at all. The Outsiders scored top 40 hits that same year alone. Drummer Jim Fox even left the band shortly after to co-found the James Gang with a young guitarist named Joe Walsh, who'd go on to join the Eagles. But none of it ever escaped this song's shadow, and history flattened an entire run of success down to 4 unforgettable minutes. Number 7. Let's Live for Today by the Grassroots, 1967.
By chasing after money and dreams that can't come true.
Bright, ringing guitars, harmonies that feel like sunlight coming through a windshield, and a message that landed perfectly in a decade that was starting to feel unstable. This song crossed an ocean to get here, and its journey is stranger than almost anything else on this list. It started life in Italy as Piangi con me, a hit in 1966 for a British band called The Rokes, who'd relocated to Rome and found stardom singing in Italian. When their label wanted an English version for the UK market, a Rokes member wrote his own translation first once, but the publisher rejected it and handed the job to a staff songwriter in London instead, who came up with the title and concept we know today.
Don't worry, back tomorrow, hey.
A publisher in London rewrote the lyrics in English, and from there it reached producers P.F. Sloan and Steve Barry, who ran the Grassroots almost like a studio project, recruiting whichever band could best perform their songs. They saw exactly what this one could become for an American audience living through a war that made Not Waiting for Tomorrow feel less like a lyric and more like
Loving you. 1, 2, 3, 4.
advice. Soldiers serving in Vietnam reportedly adopted it as an unofficial favorite. It became the song people played at the end of a perfect day, the one that made you want to hold onto the moment a little longer before it slipped away. It reached the top 10 in the summer of 1967 and sold over 2 million copies. A song written in Italian, translated in London, and turned into an American anthem. Without most listeners ever knowing, it wasn't originally theirs to begin with.
I'll be your loving man. We'll take the most from living.
Grassroots themselves went through 2 entirely different lineups before this recording, with producers Sloan and Bari essentially auditioning bands to front their songs until a group called the 13th Floor,
That people do, and I don't mean to hurry, as long
led by singer Rob Grill, finally became the version of the band that stuck. You've heard the survivors so far, the songs that lasted, that still get played. Coming up, there's a track the band recording it actually despised, saved from obscurity by a producer's stubborn instinct.
Before we continue, can I ask you for a small favor? There's something I honestly don't understand. Only about 10% of the people who watch Nostalgia Rock YT are actually subscribed. That means more than 90% of viewers enjoy the videos, listen to the music, relive the memories, and then leave without subscribing. And if I'm being honest, that can be a little heartbreaking, because these videos don't just appear. Every upload takes hours of research, fact-checking, script writing, editing, and preserving the stories behind the music we all love. We do all of that because these songs deserve to be remembered. So when thousands of people watch and enjoy the content, but only a few take a second to subscribe, it sometimes feels like the work is being appreciated, but the people behind it are being forgotten. If this channel has ever helped you rediscover a song, relive a memory, or simply made your day a little better, please take 1 second to subscribe. It's completely free, but it's the biggest way you can support what we do. Every subscription encourages us to keep going, keep creating, and keep preserving the music that means so much to all of us. Thank you for being here. Now, let's get back to the music.
Number 6. Green Tambourine by the Lemon Pipers, 1968. Some songs don't ask your permission to get weird. This one just pulls you sideways into somewhere dreamlike. Swirling colors, lights that don't quite behave like real lights. Here's the part almost nobody talks about. The Lemon Pipers hated this song. They were a hard rock band from Ohio who wanted to sound like Cream, not candy-coated psychedelia, but their producer, Paul Leka, heard something commercial in it and pushed them into the studio anyway. Leka co-wrote the song with Shelly Pins, who says the idea came from watching a street beggar play a tambourine for spare change on a corner in New York City. The band's very first single for the label had already flopped, and Buddha Records was determined not to let that happen twice. So this time, the label controlled the songwriting from top to bottom. The band fought Leka on the direction right up until release day, dubbing his songs funny money music behind his back. For listeners, none of that tension mattered. This became the soundtrack to a certain kind of late 60s wonder. Headphones on, lights down low, the world outside completely forgotten.
My green tambourine.
And for 2.5 minutes, it shot to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in early 1968, becoming the very first number 1 hit for Buddha Records and one of the first psychedelic pop songs ever to top the charts. The record layered in electric sitar and sweeping orchestral strings, giving it a texture that sounded like nothing else on the radio that winter.
My green tambourine.
And the band resented it so much that the tension never fully healed, breaking them apart within 2 years, unable to reconcile the sound that made them famous with the sound they actually wanted to make. Guitarist Bill Bartlett eventually found a very different kind of fame nearly a decade later, playing the signature riff on Ram Jam's 1977 hit Black Betty, while the original song itself quietly resurfaced decades later on the soundtrack of the television series Fargo. We're at the halfway point of this list,
Music that is mine.
and if you're anything like me, at least one of these has already pulled up a memory you weren't expecting, a road, a room, a person you haven't thought about in years. Which one hit you hardest so far? Tell me in the comments. I want to know where you were the first time you heard it. Still to come, a song that made a Spanish band the first of their kind to conquer American radio, and a track built on nothing but 15 minutes of pure instinct. Number 5, Black is Black by Los Bravos, 1966. There's a confidence to this one that feels like walking into a room already knowing every eye is on you. A driving bass line, a vocal that dares you to look away. Los Bravos were something rare for their era. A Spanish band formed from the merger of two Madrid groups, fronted by a German-born singer named Mike Kogel, recording in London with British producer Ivor Raymond, chasing a sound big enough to cross every border in Europe and land in America too. At the time, strict British musicians' union rules meant the Spanish members of the band weren't even allowed to play on their own record. The instruments were handled almost entirely by London session musicians, with only Kogel's vocals truly belonging to the group you saw on stage. Rumor has it that a young session guitarist named Jimmy Page was in the room during the recording, though the band themselves have given conflicting accounts over the years about how much he actually played. It became the song that proved rock and roll didn't belong to any one country. Proof that the feeling in a song could translate even when almost nothing else about the band matched the American mold. It reached number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 2 in the UK, making Los Bravos the first Spanish act to crack the American top 5. And to this day, most casual listeners have no idea the band wasn't American, or even British at all. A French-language cover by Johnny Hallyday held the number 1 spot in France for 7 straight weeks that same year. And the band's follow-up single, I Don't Care, reached number 16 in the UK before their momentum quietly faded. That song was all swagger. The one coming up next doesn't strut, it haunts. Number 4. In the Year 2525 by Zager and Evans, 1969.
Nobody's gonna look at you.
You knew this one before you even knew the title. That steady, almost hypnotic pulse, like a countdown to something you can't quite see yet. Rick Evans wrote the lyrics back in 1964, allegedly scribbled in the back of a van after a night out with friends, years before anyone outside Nebraska ever heard them. He and Denny Zager eventually recorded the song in a small studio in Odessa, Texas, with former Buddy Holly guitarist Tommy Alsop behind the board, using local session players and even a few members of the Odessa Symphony to round out the sound.
You pick your son, pick your daughter.
A regional label put it out first, and it built slowly on local airplay before RCA caught wind of it and pushed it nationwide. For listeners in the summer of 1969, in the middle of the space race and a country staring uneasily into its own future, this became the song that made people sit in silence and actually think about where things were headed. It spent 6 weeks at number 1, arriving in stores just 8 days before Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, and topped the charts in the UK, Canada, Ireland, and New Zealand as well. And it remains one of the only songs in chart history to top the Billboard Hot 100 from a duo who never returned to the charts again. An entire career distilled into one song about a future none of us will live to see. Their next single, Mr. Turnkey, failed to chart at all, and by 1971 the duo had gone their separate ways for good, with Denny Zager eventually building custom guitars back in Nebraska. The song still turns up decades later in films and television, its bleak vision of the future somehow never going out of style. Number 3, I Fought the Law by Bobby Fuller. 4, 1966. This is the sound of running out of patience. From the very first note, it moves like it's sprinting from something. The song wasn't even originally theirs. It was written years earlier by Sonny Curtis, who joined the Crickets as their guitarist after Buddy Holly's death, and first recorded on their 1960 album. But Bobby Fuller and his band, all from El Paso, Texas, tore into it with a raw, defiant energy that made it feel brand new, recorded fast and loose in Hollywood. For a generation of restless teenagers, this became the sound of pushing back against every rule that felt unfair, blasted from open car windows by kids who weren't looking for permission. It climbed to number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100 in early 1966, following an earlier local hit called Let Her Dance, that had only grazed the charts nationally. But just months later, 23-year-old Bobby Fuller was found dead in a car outside his Hollywood apartment under circumstances that have never been fully explained. The official ruling was accidental asphyxiation, but the case has never fully settled with fans or historians. The mystery surrounding his death turned this song into something far heavier than it was ever meant to be. A defiant anthem that now carries real tragedy underneath it. The Clash's 1979 cover introduced the song to an entirely new generation of punk fans who often had no idea it started as a Texas garage rock hit 13 years earlier, and in 2015 the original recording was finally inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. We've reached the songs that hit hardest, the ones that don't just bring back a memory, they bring back a feeling you thought you'd buried. Number 2, Dirty Water by the Standells, 1966. A producer gets mugged on a bridge in Boston. He goes back to his hotel room angry. By morning, one of rock's most beloved anthems exists, for a city he'd only visited once. That producer was Ed Cobb, and the band who recorded it, the Standells, were from Los Angeles and had never set foot in Boston before the song came out. It's a loose, half-joking tribute to a polluted river, a curfew for local college women, and even a passing nod to the Boston Strangler. Nobody involved expected it to mean anything beyond a strange inside joke. Oddly enough, the song didn't even break first in Boston. It became a regional hit in Florida, before spreading east, climbing steadily for months before most of New England had even heard it. Here's the part that turned it into legend. Boston adopted the song as its own anyway. Decades later, it's still played after every Red Sox win at Fenway Park, every Bruins win on home ice,
That's what's happening, baby.
and even after Liverpool Football Club matches in England, thanks to a shared ownership group with the Red Sox that started playing it across the Atlantic in 2019. It became a hit nationwide in 1966, reaching number 11 on the Billboard chart, driven by a snarling guitar riff played through a Fender Telecaster and a Vox amplifier that became one of the most recognizable openings in garage rock. And the strangest part of all is that a song written almost as a throwaway joke by an angry LA producer became one of the most beloved unofficial anthems in Boston sports history. A city fully claiming a song that was never really about them, and a band that had barely even visited before it made them legends there. Number 1, Spirit in the Sky by Norman Greenbaum, 1969. Picture this. Late 1969, you're spinning the radio dial and suddenly a fuzzed-out guitar riff cuts through everything else on the airwaves like nothing you've ever heard. That's the moment this song arrives. Not plays, arrives. Reprise Records was so unsure about it that executives reportedly said a 4-minute single about Jesus would never get played on pop radio at all. Norman Greenbaum wrote it in about 15 minutes after watching country singer Porter Wagoner perform a gospel song about a dying miner on television. Greenbaum wasn't religious himself. He'd grown up in an observant Jewish household outside Boston, but the idea of a song about the afterlife stuck with him. He recorded it in San Francisco with producer Eric Jacobson, who pushed him to run the main riff through a homemade fuzzbox a friend had wired directly into his guitar, because nothing off the shelf sounded raw enough. Gospel singers, the Stovall sisters, added the soaring backing vocals that give the track its unmistakable lift, and the central riff itself borrowed its bones from an old John Lee Hooker blues line, twisted into something nobody had heard before. For listeners then and now, this became something bigger than a song, the one that plays at funerals and road trips in equal measure, somehow holding grief and joy at the exact same time without ever feeling like it's cheating either one. It peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, sold over 2 million copies, and has appeared in more than 30 films: Apollo 13, Wayne's World 2, Guardians of the Galaxy, and dozens more, along with countless commercials in the decades since. The song wasn't without controversy either. Some Christian listeners took issue with the line, claiming the narrator had never been a sinner, pointing out that contradicted their own theology, something Greenbaum later admitted he simply hadn't known when he wrote it. A cover by British group Doctor and the Medics even hit number 1 in the UK in 1986, reigniting interest in Greenbaum's original nearly 2 decades later. And the strangest twist of all is that the man who wrote one of rock's most enduring anthems never had another hit again. For years, he worked quietly as a cook and ran a small goat farm in California, living comfortably off the royalties of one song. 15 minutes, and a piece of music that simply refused to disappear. These songs weren't just noise coming out of a radio. They were the soundtrack to nights you can still feel if you close your eye. The drives, the heartbreaks, the summers that felt like they'd never end even though every single one of them did. Some of these bands didn't even like the songs that made them famous. Some never even set foot in the cities that turned their music into legend, and almost none of them ever came close to matching the moment again, no matter how hard they tried in the years that followed. Most of these artists only got one shot, one song, one moment, one chance to matter. And somehow, that was enough to outlast 50 years, enough to still stop people cold on a classic rock station in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, decades after anyone expected these songs to still be playing at all. That's the strange gift of the one-hit wonder. It doesn't need a career to become immortal. It just needs one perfect take at exactly the right moment, heard by exactly the right people. Which one still gives you chills every single time it plays? Tell me in the comments which of these 1960s one-hit wonders takes you back the furthest. And don't be surprised if you end up there for a while.